Ladies and gentlemen, today is June 16th, 2022. My name is Dr. James Lyons-Weiler. I am the CEO of IPAC, the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge. I'm the founder of IPACedu.org, an online university where we teach the public all kinds of courses. We have an important number of courses coming this summer, but that's not what I am here to tell you about today. On this special episode of Unbreaking Science, a good friend of mine sent me an article that I just have to absolutely share with you. You're not going to believe your ears, and when you read the article, you're not going to believe your eyes. The professor, Marty Makary at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, a few days ago, published this essay, this opinion article. It's an article that I could have written, Del Bigtree could have written, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could have written, any number of the calm, sage voices that have done the analysis for years have been saying the American people should not trust the CDC. The American people should not trust the FDA. You are not going to believe this when I read it to you. I'm going to read the article in its entirety. It's that important. He has in the past criticized the FDA for moving too slowly for the approval of COVID-19 vaccines. So I'm not exactly sure, 100% where he's coming from on all issues. But I will tell you, this article is not like anything we've ever seen before, published in mainstream media by Johns Hopkins University. If this doesn't show that the jig is up, that the world is watching, the world knows what the FDA is about to do in approving these vaccines for kids under the age of 5 on zero data. The same way that they just did that just a couple of weeks ago, on basically zero data for 5 to 11-year-olds. I called them out consistently on my Substack, Popular Rationalism. I've spoken about it. I've done interviews, podcast after podcast on America Out Loud, Pulse, and now on Unbreaking Science. This isn't a victory lap. This is something that you all need to be aware of. You need to show this article to your friends and neighbors and families, all of your loved ones, the people who won't speak to you anymore about because of your position and your awareness of vaccine risk awareness. If you're a Facebook censor, I encourage you to read it too. Okay? Because all I'm doing is reading the article by Professor John McKay of Johns Hopkins University. You have censored me. You have been shadow banned. I've been fact-checked for saying these exact same things. The title of the article is Why America Doesn't Trust CDC. It's an opinion article. Let's make that clear. It was published on June 6th, 2022. The article goes as follows. People don't trust the CDC. Here's one example illustrating why. 2 weeks ago, with no outcomes data on COVID-19 booster shots for 5 to 11-year-olds, the Center for Disease Control vigorously recommended the booster for all 24 million American children in that age group. The CDC cited a small Pfizer study of 140 children that showed boosters elevated their antibody levels, an outcome known to be transitory. When that study concluded, a Pfizer spokesman said it did not determine the efficacy of the booster for 5 to 11-year-olds. But that didn't matter to the CDC. So, seemingly hoping for a different answer, the agency put the matter before its own, now get this, kangaroo court of curated experts, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Now, people have asked me time and time again, Dr. Jack, please come down, meet with the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, and tell them what you know. Inform them, educate them. And I've simply refused. I've refused on the basis of I will not acknowledge that body as a legitimate body with any kind of authority whatsoever. That's been the basis of my refusal. Kangaroo court. I listened to the meeting. This is Dr. Makary. I listened to the meetings. I couldn't believe what I had heard. At times, the committee members sounded like a group of marketing executives. Dr. Beth Bell of the University of Washington said, "What we really need to do is to be as consistent and clear and simple as possible," pointing out that the committee needed a consistent recommendation of what is simple. I'm going to put the title here again. I've got to fix our streaming. Something's wrong with our streaming. Hang on just a moment. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I have extremely good bandwidth Wi-Fi here, but apparently it was struggling to get this out. What I'm doing is I'm reading this article, Why America Can't Be Trusted. Why America Doesn't Trust the CDC, I should say. An article written by Marty Makary, Professor, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. And I'm just two paragraphs in. And he's saying, I listened to the meeting, I couldn't believe it. Believe what I heard. At times, the committee members sounded like a group of marketing executives. Dr. Beth Bell of the University of Washington said, what we really need to do is to be as consistent and clear and simple as possible, pointing out that the committee needed, quote, a consistent recommendation which is simple. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of my complaints, that it's more important for them to have a consistent message than it is to have an accurate message. And I've made this clear. I've communicated this through many channels. I'm so glad that Johns Hopkins University is now saying the same thing. Other committee members similarly emphasized the importance of a universal booster message that applies to all age groups. Dr. David Kimberlin, editor of the American Academy of Pediatrics Red Book, speaking on his own behalf, said Americans are yearning for and crying out for a simpler way for looking at this pandemic. Are they? Are they looking for a simple way to understand the pandemic, or do they want to understand the pandemic? In my experience, the people that I speak to, they want to understand the virus. They want to understand the vaccine. They want to understand if the virus and the vaccine can work synergistically to cause illness in human beings through pathogenic priming. That's been my experience. He, now meaning Dr. David Kimberlin, editor of the American Academy of Pediatrics Red Book, suggested that not recommending boosters for young children would create confusion that, quote, could also bleed over to 12 and 17-year-olds and even to the adult population. No kidding. So if they find problems with this vaccine with kids, they're not going to tell us about it because it might scare other people off the vaccine. No kidding. They're saying it right out loud. The committee also debated how hard to push the booster recommendation, discussing whether the CDC should say that 5 to 11-year-olds may get a booster versus should get a booster. Exhibiting classical medical paternalism, committee member Dr. Oliver Brooks of the Watts Healthcare Corporation said, I think may is confusing and may sow doubts, adding, if we say should, more people will get boosted versus may, and then we have more data that helps us really define what's going on. Dr. Brooks was essentially suggesting that boosting in this age group would be a clinical trial conducted without informed consent. That's exactly what I've been saying all along. Post-market vaccine surveillance studies, where they do what's called immunobridging. They make an assessment of the safety and efficacy in one population, and then they make an unwarranted generalization to another population. They call that immunobridging. Thank you, Bernadette, for correcting me on my last Popular Rationalism Substack article. I used that immunobridging term in a different way, and I was wrong. But Dr. Brooks was essentially saying that boosting in this age group would be a clinical trial without informed consent, just like every other childhood vaccine in use. None of them have been shown to be safe and effective in randomized controlled clinical trials in children. None of them. And yet, the Code of Federal Regulations offers that population, allegedly, special protections. stricter rules for children and pregnant women. Okay. ACIP's medical establishment representatives were on hand for the meeting. They included members of the Trade Association, Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, and the American Medical Association, AMA. Dr. Sandra Freihofer, an internist representing the AMA, summarized the tone of the many legacy stakeholders present with a passionate plea. Quote, I urge the committee to support a should recommendation for this third dose. Should versus may. Knowing that the data are not there to warrant should, they still want to go with should. The committee promptly approved the booster for young children by an 11-1 vote, with the one obstetrician abstaining because he missed some of the discussion. The one dissenting vote came from Dr. Keith Talbert of Vanderbilt University, who courageously said, while vaccines, while extremely effective, quote, are not without their potential side effects. That's courageous? To admit that there is side effects is courageous? No, that's science. That's objectivity. That's just the way that all scientists, if you're a card-carrying scientist, should speak, biomedical researcher or otherwise. Okay? Please, that's just a bare minimum of any card-carrying scientist, is to state the truth as well as you know it, not bias the language. It's not courageous to say that there's adverse events to vaccines. It's not. And people say I'm a hero. I'm not. I'm simply being a scientist. I just never stopped being a scientist when I decided to start studying vaccines. The CDC has a history of appointing like-minded loyalists to its committees. Last year, it dismissed a member of its vaccine safety group, Harvard Professor of Medicine, Dr. Mark Koldov, remember that? For dissenting from his decision to pause the J&J vaccine. A year ago, Joe Biden appointed party devotees to his COVID-19 task force. Reaching a consensus is easier that way. Reaching a consensus is easier that way. The Food and Drug Administration's Vaccine Advisory Committee, comprised of the nation's top vaccine experts, have made similar public statements as Dr. Talbot, but the committee was not involved in approving boosters for children. The FDA actually bypassed it days prior, the third time over the last year that the FDA made sweeping and controversial authorizations without convening its vaccine experts. Most remarkably, it didn't seem to matter to the CDC that 75.2% of children under the age of 11 already have natural immunity, according to a CDC study that concluded in February. Natural immunity is certainly much more prevalent today given the ubiquity of the Omicron variant since February. CDC data from New York and California demonstrated that natural immunity was 2.8 times more effective in preventing hospitalizations and 3.3 to 4.7 times more effective in preventing COVID infection compared to vaccination during the Delta wave. These findings are consistent with dozens of other clinical studies. They're looking at the consilience of the evidence here. Okay, Dr. Makary is citing the consilience of the evidence from all lines and all different types of evidence. Yet natural immunity has consistently and inexplicably been dismissed by the medical establishment. I can't help but hearing Del Victory's voice in my ears right now when I'm reading these words. I can't help but hearing Robert F. Kennedy's voice. I can't help but hear so many hundreds of people that I've spoken with, so many people I've interviewed, saying the exact same thing, but they're not at Johns Hopkins, so they don't get into Newsweek. Well, it's time people start waking up. When the CDC voted, Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky declared that the booster dose is safe for kids age 5 to 11. He says, the author says, yes, the complication rate is very low and we think it's safe, but how can anyone know from only a short-term follow-up of 140 children? The message is getting out there, folks. We've done it. He's saying our talking points. How can anyone know from only a short-term follow-up of 140 children? The more appropriate assessment is that we believe it's safe until we can't be sure yet from the data we have so far. Unfortunately, the strength of the CDC recommendation to boost all children 5 and up will trigger some schools and summer camps to blindly mandate a third dose for healthy children who don't need it. based on belief. These are Dr. Makary's words, based on not belief, not science, belief. He's correcting Rochelle Walensky when she says that the booster dose is safe. She's claiming knowledge. He says, no, you don't know that. You just believe that. And it's going to turn out to be mandates? Are you kidding me? Instead of pushing boosters on healthy children who are already immune, public health officials should focus on recommending the primary COVID vaccine series to high-risk children who don't have any immunity. Public health officials are expected to recommend COVID vaccines for children under 5 as soon as June 21st, despite the fact that the vast majority of children already have natural immunity. In a recent Kaiser survey, only 18% of parents said that they were eager to vaccinate their child in that age group. These are the kids under 5. Now, he's switched and he's talking about the kids under 5. And I've been telling you, trying to tell you, I'm shadow banned, I'm suppressed. I've been trying to tell you that the FDA is going to make this decision. And that's happening this Wednesday. And I have to point you to my Substack, Popular Rationalism. And I have to point you to Toby McDonald's Substack, Steve Kirsch's Substack, Jessica Rowe's Substack. I have to point you to the Substacks of Matthew Crawford, that's with a single T. Go and read those Substacks and send them to everyone you know. We're getting the word out. It's coming out in Newsweek. But the message is clear. All right, continuing the article. If the CDC is curious as to why people aren't listening to its recommendations, it should consider how it bypassed experts to put the matter before a kangaroo court of like-minded loyalists. The Biden administration should insist that we return to the standard process of putting all major vaccine decisions before a vote of FDA's leading vaccine experts. When public health doesn't get what it wants, it destroys what gets in its way. Now, some of you are going to want to quote that. You want to put that down. When public health doesn't get what it wants, it destroys whatever is in its way. That's me. That's not Dr. Makary. The Biden administration promised to listen to the scientists, but the truth is it only seems to listen to the ones who say what it wants to hear. Marty Makary, MD, PhD, at Marty Makary on Twitter, is a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine and author of the New York Times bestselling book, The Price We Pay, What Broke America Healthcare and How to Fix It. The views expressed in this article are the writer's own. Could it be any more clear? Right? When we see articles like this actually being published in New York Times, calling ACIP a kangaroo court, right? Ladies and gentlemen, it is so important that the next thing that you do, the very next thing that you do in your life, could determine the fate of hundreds of millions of children. If this vaccine gets approved by the FDA for children under the age of 5, all of the serious adverse events, all of the mild adverse events, and certainly the long-term adverse events that we suspect might still be might be present, might be occurring because of the vaccine, could in fact influence many aspects of the health of these children in an adverse way. Worse than that, as I've said before, my concern is that if there's a federal mandate in this age group of this vaccine, and this is the vaccine that they would try it on, because no one can touch COVID. You can't criticize the COVID vaccine. That will then give them legal precedence to do a federal mandate on all vaccines, whether you're homeschooling or not. You have to stand up right now. The next thing that you do over the next 20 minutes of your life, I want you to write an email to your senator. I want you to write an email to your congressman. And I want you to go to my Popular Rationalism, popularrationalism.substack.com, popularrationalism.substack.com, and I want you to send them that article. I want you to send them this article. I want you to send them this article as well. Marty Makary, and tell them how many people have been shadow banned by the neoliberals who believe that censorship in America is a good thing. Censorship over the discussion on how science should proceed that affects us all, how public health policy that proceeds should affect us all. Tell them what you think. Now's your time. Now's your chance. This is it. If you've ever not done something, don't make it this. Don't regret this. I'm asking you to please share this video with everyone you know, literally people who hate you because of your views on vaccines. Please share it with everyone that you know in your email inbox. We have to get this word out. They're not basing it on science, they're basing it on belief. They're simply creating positions, scientific positions, that will affect children's health out of thin air. What happens next is up to you. 100% up to you. I've been at this for a little while now, 2015. Created an online university, IPAC EDU, to teach objective science, logic, and reason. Created an IPAC, the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge, to conduct objective science in the public interest. Created an online peer-reviewed journal, Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law. I'm tired, and I need your support. You can support me in so many ways. You can support me here for Unbreaking Science episodes at patreon.com/WWDNYK. You can support me through a small monthly contribution, just a small monthly, $5, $1, $2, at IPAknowledge.org. But what I'd really like to do is like to see you in class. I'd like to see you taking classes at IPAC-EDU.org. They're live. It's not just me. We have 14 instructors. We're teaching. I teach basic biology. I teach immunology. We are hiring genetics. We just hired a genetics instructor. We have so many great courses on tap. Pam Popper is going to teach. David Brownstein's teaching. Geert Vanden Bosch is going to come teach autoimmunity. So many of you should be taking classes. Why? Because this is where the community gets to have their say too. They're live. You get to interact with each other. You get to teach each other. You get to teach me directly. And you get to spend time with people that you know are ethical and objective. So the next 20 minutes, please go to this, go to Newsweek, share this article with your senator and congressman and tell them what you know. Don't make it complex. Keep it simple. And go to popularrationalismsubstack.com and find my article on the FDA. It's just been published at Children's Health Defense as well, in the Defender, I'm told. So you go to Children's Health Defense, the Defender, find the article, go to popularrationalismsubstack.com and share that along with this article. And let them know objective science is coming. Objective science doesn't die. It doesn't matter how many people try to bury the truth. Science is a way of knowing. It's a process. And what Marty Makary is doing is he's calling FDA out for bad regulatory process. Biased, politicized, cronyism, call it what you want. Profiteering, insider trading, all of it. It's all going to come out because of you. What you do in the next 20 minutes. Share this video with everyone you know after